Hello, everybody, and welcome back to tracking our local shifting real estate market here in southern New Jersey, Burlington, Camden, Gloucester counties, 900,000 and below. And we actually went back and did all of the new data point that we had introduced over the past couple weeks. I had only had it for 3 weeks, and I recognized that that was not enough for us to actually make any type of decisions based on the information presented. So I went back all the way to the beginning of the year, and we will review that. We got the end of the month here, so we're going to be reviewing our January, February, March, and April averages, and I've updated all of our graphs for today to show you where we're sitting across our major data points. One first thing about this, there is a lot of different information going on in real estate across the country. Make sure you are tuning in. Obviously, I like to do it here for the Burlington, Camden, Gloucester County areas. I'm covered in both PA and New Jersey. I can cover some extra areas if anybody wants in particular. However, Florida is not New Jersey. New York City is not New Jersey. Chicago, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Boise, Idaho are not New Jersey. Make sure that you're getting your information hyper specifically. Now, let's jump over to our actual stats for this week when we settle into our 12 key metrics. It used to be 10. So first things first, we have our total active listings. We are up over 1,300. That's fantastic because as I scroll myself back here, the last time that we were at 1,300 was week 2 of January, and that was coming off of a very slow, basically Thanksgiving, December, early January. So it's great to see that we've actually rebounded inventory a little bit. So I think a lot of people are like, oh, it's so crazy, there's nothing available. Actually, we've been moving in a really positive direction with total active listings. So I like to see that coming into this part of the May going into the early June spring market. Now, June is going to be an important month for active listings because we do have a lot of people that base their home purchases around the end of the school year in most schools and somewhere in those first couple weeks of June. So keep an eye on that as we get through May and then get closer to that period of time. But we had just an incredibly healthy market this week. I mean, this is just personally one of my favorite 3 data points in a row to see for this week. We have 319 that came on new, 318 that went under contract, and we had 303 that closed. So our golden ratio lives because we have more new that went under contract and we have more that went under contract that closed, and all of it up over 300. So a great week for South Jersey real estate in terms of closed units and everybody moving. Our expired, withdrawn, and canceled listings, they're quite low, down at 59. We have our price reduced, which is a little bit lower than what we see here from our total active listings as a percentage as we've seen before. And then our days on market, still pretty fast, but we've been hovering around that same amount for the past handful of weeks here. Volume again coming in with this. We've seen the volume come up quite a bit, almost 20 million here over the past couple weeks. And then our median list price, right? Last week we set our record for this area ever, highest median list price at $350,000, and we came back to earth here at this 349. But that's not all surprising. We kind of talked about the fact that this was going to go up and down and things like that. And one of my big bold predictions at the beginning of the year was going to be that we were going to get to 350,000 by June. As of the week 17, we got there. So first bold prediction was hit. But let's jump down to the stat that we added here, which was our average sold to list price and our median sold to list price. And this is basically answering the question of how far over asking price do I need to be able to go in order to win a bid? Now, what was a little alarming to me was a couple of weeks ago at 106.4. This is when I first started tracking it. Turns out that was a total anomaly. Okay. So as I went back from the beginning of the year, I tracked all of our average and median sold list price. So I'm just going to take the average because it moves a little bit more. The median's fairly flat with a lot of this stuff. But we're always been over 100 basically for the average, except for literally 1 week, which was week 7 here in February. But you can see basically everything is selling at about list price or a little over. And what we've seen is as we got into April here, 101.2, 101.5, 106.4, 102.7, and 102.9. So that has definitely bumped up a little bit. We have seen the over asking price offers come in here. Now, let me address this real quick from an offer standpoint. While that is true, that things are going over asking price, I've still heard a lot of concerns from listing agents about appraisal. We can't go too high over. So what has been the other term that has sort of increased in severity in order to say like, hey, it's still even getting more competitive, but we just can't keep going that far up over price? I have seen more as is listings than I have ever seen before. There have been more properties marketing themselves as this is as is sale from an inspection standpoint, right? As is meaning As is. You are taking the property in its current condition today, and we will not be making any repairs. Now, asterisk, caveat, just because a listing is saying that it's being sold as is, doesn't mean you have to do that, right? That's just saying we have a very strong preference for this. But if you give them a really good offer with 9 of the other 10 terms that are really solid, but you say, but I still want to have a limited home inspection, that's still at the discretion of the agent and the seller of whether they want to take that or not. So don't take that as like a poison pill, like you can't approach any as is listings. Just know that you'd have to really negotiate well on your other terms in order for them to overcome the fact that they want to sell the property as is. Now, 2 things left for this week, a little bit longer than our normal just weekly slew because we don't have much in the middle of the month, but we are at the end of the month and we have updated monthly averages. So just real quick, coming back over to here. So what have we seen from total active listings? Well, on an average, we're a little bit higher than where we've been from February and March. Again, I love to see that. The new listings number on an average standpoint has been higher, and we should expect that. We're getting into the April, spring market here, about to hit May. We've seen an uptick in our pending units. We've seen an uptick in our closed units. That all makes sense. The expired, withdrawn, and canceled a little bit higher, but again, there's more listings, so that makes sense. Our price reductions have been down a little bit, and we've seen that because we've seen that our median list price has gone from $333 to $340 to $345 to $349 just this year. So we've already come up about $16,000 this year. Just from our median list price. Now, that did come down slightly from where we were in December of last year. So that doesn't make we were at $338, $345, $339 not at the end of last year. So it's not a true $16,000 increase, but it's right about there. But let's take a look at this average sold price. So 101.1 at the beginning of the year in January, 100.4, a little stagnation in February, but then 101.7 and 102.9 as our average for April. So the trend is, and this is where we kind of extract what is the meaning of the data, right? It's fun to go over numbers. Well, it's fun for me, but what does it mean? And what that means is that it's more likely that you are going to have to offer over asking price in order to get your house. Now, it's more likely. That just means we're at 102.9%. An average is take everything, add it, find the middle, right? I mean, that's basically what this is. The problem is there's still a lot of listings that are selling under asking price. And I don't think that's really a story. I think everybody assumes that everything is going over. The stuff that's going over are those listings you see that are perfectly photoed. They're positioned right where they should be from a pricing standpoint. They don't try and overshoot the listing, right? And those are the ones that are getting the 105 over asking price, 106 over asking price percent in terms of what they're asking for. But there's still a lot that are a little bit lower. So what I've been trying to tell as many of my buyers, and this may be you coming in the next couple months or next couple years, is have a realistic expectation of what the home you're going to get. Start watching some of those DIY videos of how to beautify your home, because if you want to get a deal in this market, you're probably going to have to go for one of those less attractive listings. So that's what we're kind of seeing there. So let's wrap this up with our graphs, and I'm just going to pull my fat face over here. Oh, real quick note on interest rates. So these interest rates have gone up by 0.29 points in 2 weeks. Last time I ran this was back in the beginning of April. And now on Freddie Mac, we've gone from like 6.88 up to 7.17. So interest rates have been increasing at a time when we really thought that they would be decreasing. Now let's take a look at what's been happening to this median list price. So again, green is last year, red is this year. Green last year, red this year. So you can see last year we had that huge run up and then a pretty big stagnation here. We had a little bit of a drop come January, just because, again, I mentioned we have a pretty slow December, pretty slow January, so prices kind of came down. But man, if this year hasn't come back with a vengeance coming right into this price increase, and this isn't just me. You want to talk to a Dave Ramsey, right? That big financial guy, no debt, all that stuff. He's on the record saying, even as a conservative guy that doesn't want people to be taking out huge loans on properties, he's even saying real estate prices will be going up this year. It is a matter of time. So get your properties situated earlier rather than later. So median list price on the rise, as we should expect. From our days on market perspective, blue was last year, red is this year, right? And last year we really tanked our days on market. It got super fast. Again, stagnated a little bit to the end of the year. And then you can see immediately this year, 72 in January, 67, 60, 57, right? So the speed, average days on market, how long is a listing sitting? It's not sitting very long. So again, the prices are going up. The properties are speeding through pretty quickly. But let's take a look at our total active listings. I'm actually encouraged by this one. So again, blue last year, red this year. So we had this huge drop, and that was that was the start of the inflation, right? Last year, January through April was the huge inflation numbers. And then we've still had, unfortunately, a lot of inflation, but it kind of people got around to it. So we saw a little bit of our listings rebound over the course of the entire year, which is great. But then again, we come into November of last year, December of last year, 1471, into January of this year, 1289, 1224. So we are starting to rebound those listings a little bit at a time where last year they were just tanking. So that's a great sign. This is one of the signs that I'd like to see the most, is that a lot of people have been watching and listening and saying, hey, I got to get my home on the market, and I got to get my feet into something before this starts to go kind of off the rails a little bit. And again, this is just our 30-year fixed rate mortgage, since we've been tracking it at the beginning of 2023. But this right here, remember at the beginning of the year, this is when we started talking about wanting to see interest rates come down this year, right? They ended last year at a huge peak up at almost 8%. And then we had this really big drop through the end of last year, which was good. And then it kind of muddled a little bit. It went up, right there at the beginning of March, end of February, came down a bit, but then we're going right back up again. So this is not what we want to see. Is this interest rate number still staying high? That was something we did expect to come down. So that's a little bit wearisome, is that we're seeing that. But otherwise, a pretty healthy market update this week. I'm actually excited to see a lot about, especially the total active listings that are starting to come up, but that listing price increasing and the likelihood that you have to offer over asking price, that is the number that I don't like to see, because it's really hitting buyers in the wallets. The final note, and then I'm going to let you go. The NAR settlement has been passing most of the steps that it's needed to in the courts, the House, all these different things in order to become ratified as true law. And remember, part of that settlement, the one that should scare you the most as a buyer, is that it will no longer be the obligation of the seller to pay your buyer's agent. And they will require you to sign an agreement with your buyer's agent before you're even allowed to see a house. And on that agreement, you have to decide how much you're going to be able to pay that agent. Now, you can talk to a lot of different people. There's a lot of strategies that are starting to swirl around about how you're going to handle it. To me, it's a little too early to start going on a train about how you should be handling that, because we need to start to see how the market here is going to respond. This is going to make buying real estate very different across the country. There are going to be little micro pockets of areas and communities and real estate brokerages and things like that start to have different things go into effect about how they are commonly handling that. So it's just going to be that. So I am kind of in a wait and see mode a little bit here. I have a lot of what we are thinking that's going to happen, how we're going to organize our buyer representation agreements. We're on top of all that, but how it's going to start to shake out from the mass amount of sellers and buyers in this area, and what sort of becomes the new common practice after this legislative tightening goes in. I'm excited to see what that is, and we'll be ready for it. So anyway, y'all, have a good week. I hope this is helpful. I'm looking forward to a great May, and let's go buy some houses. Talk to y'all soon.